around the air closer tonight to finding out how the West was won, because when we do know that, it'll go a long way toward telling us how the Senate might be won. We're on the ground in Nevada and Arizona, where they are counting up ballots in key races with a new push to counter some lies about election fraud. Plus, Twitter is always kind of a hot mess, but tonight it's boiling. Its mess is evaporating into steam. It's so hot, with Elon Musk pumping the brakes on the whole pay for a blue checkmark thing. The headache that is giving advertisers as they start to take their money elsewhere. And the new warning tonight about electric bikes after dozens of people got hurt from a battery explosion. We'll tell you about it. And with voters in red, blue, and purple states all backing abortion rights referendums this week, we'll show you how one university is protecting access in this post-Roe world. That's in the original. And on this Veterans Day, we take you behind the scenes of an emotional story about those who served and have been forgotten. That's coming up in the backstory a little later on in the show. Don't miss it. Hey, I'm Hallie, and as we are here now with election week, we are seeing, again, election season, folks. We're seeing a split right now for each party in two of the key states for Washington, with a narrative that is really picking up steam tonight. The idea that we may be getting closer to know the winner in Nevada, and that is going to tell us a lot about where things go from here, right? Look at the ballot counting. It is happening. It is moving forward very much so, with Arizona and Nevada tallying up their mail and day of drop box ballots. Thousands of votes still need to be counted in each state. And the states are not rushing. Okay, they have timelines to hit. They want to get this right. They're sticking to these timelines. Now, things are too early to call, but at this hour, Democrats are feeling confident in both of these Senate races. Let's talk about them. This is Arizona, right? Latest ballot drops show Mark Kelly is opening up about 115,000 vote lead over Republican Blake Masters. We think we're going to get a new batch of ballots in maybe the next hour or so. And then look what's happening in Nevada, right? Because this is where the action is. Our team has shifted this from too early to call to too close to call. You've got the incumbent Democrat, Senator Catherine Cortez Masto, trailing Adam Laxalt by just about 9,000 votes. Can she close the gap? If she can, right, you put Nevada and Arizona maybe in the Dem column, and that is ball game here. Then Georgia is not determinative of balance of power in the Senate. That's a big deal. Now, on the other hand, look at the governor's races, right? Those might end up better for Republicans. In Nevada, you have Joe Lombardo with a widening lead over current Governor Steve Sisolak. Then in Arizona, Katie Hobbs is leading Kari Lake by 27,000 votes. A lot of uncertainty about what do the remaining ballots show. That race really up in the air. It's important for 2024. And I know already what you're saying, like, Hallie, please get through 2022 first. I'm trying. We're all trying, but we got to talk about it because, number one, Kari Lake is a prominent election denier. And number two, former President Trump is talking all about 2024, with all signs suggesting he is going to announce another run on Tuesday. We have a new development on that. We're going to look at what that means a little bit on later. But let's start with Sahil Kapoor and Stephanie Gosk, who are in Arizona and Nevada for us. Steph, I want to start with you because, as we've been talking about here, Nevada is where it seems like some of the energy is here as it relates to, could we be getting closer to the finish line? You had Adam Laxalt initially opening up a big lead, but more ballots have gotten counted. Senator Cortez Masto has closed the gap. Bring us up to speed on where things stand and where they're going.
Well, Hallie, I've learned a big lesson this week, and that is, even if it's drip, 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 you will eventually get there. And that's kind of what the top election official here is telling us, that they are nearing the end. And let's run through a few of the numbers. Here in Clark County, we were told that they've got about 50,000, a little over 50,000 ballots. That's what we were told yesterday. That later on tonight, there will be 15,900 ballots sent to tabulation. And then they've got a little over 34,000 that remain, and they are confident that it could be done by this weekend, at least those mail-in ballots. Here's what the top election official had to say today.
We should have the majority of the ballot, barring any equipment failures, which they've been working really well. We had them serviced before the election. They've been working really well. I don't anticipate that, but we should have them in tomorrow for a final large report. And it would be the same
schedule, evening tabulation, like you've been doing every day.
Well, if we finish and it's 3 o'clock, we're going to go ahead and report.
So now there are roughly nearly 10,000 ballots that need to be fixed or cured. The deadline for that is Monday, and then there are provisional ballots. But really, the bulk of these ballots are these mail-in, not the votes that were cast day of. These are mail-in ballots that were either dropped off at polling locations or came in through the Postal Service, Hallie.
And to be clear for people who, when you say cured or fixed, it's not, it's matching signatures, essentially. It's kind of going through those technical steps. And that, I think that's an important distinction because you're already seeing some of the seeds of denialism being planted here with Politico reporting that back here in D.C., Senator Lindsey Graham is suggesting, again, with zero evidence here, that if Adam Laxalt, the Republican, does not win, it's a lie. Again, no evidence at all of voter fraud in Nevada. And officials have been clear for a while, Steph, like, this is going to be a slow count, but this is a sign of how much attention is on Nevada and what's at stake here.
Yeah, that's right. And let's just talk math. And the beautiful thing in these troubled times is that math doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what political party you're with. It's just numbers, okay? And if you look at the numbers with these mail-in ballots, it tells a certain story. And over the last couple of days, as they have dropped, they have cut almost 2/3 of them to Cortez Masto. And if those numbers hold, if that distribution holds, she could be the winner in this state, plain and simple. And that's what our statisticians on our decision desk have been telling us here at NBC News. And that's what remains, is these mail-in ballots. So we'll have to see what happens tonight. We should have more results in the next few hours.
Stephanie Gosk live for us there in North Las Vegas. Steph, thank you. Let me go now to Vaughn Hilliard in Phoenix. And Vaughn, there we are also seeing a similar trend here with some of these candidates with no projections in this race yet, laying the groundwork for election denialism, from Kari Lake, the gubernatorial candidate we talked about, to the Secretary of State candidate Mark Fincham.
Right, Hallie, they're filling the airspace as we all wait here. Yes, you can watch the tabulation happen, and you can also create conspiracy theories if you like. And some of these Republican candidates have chosen to do that. Mark Fincham, the Secretary of State candidate, comes up with one every few hours here, suggesting there's anomalies, which there are not. He's questioned why one statewide candidate received 215,000 more votes than any of the other statewide candidates, suggesting wrongdoing. Kari Lake has suggested that the elections officials are purposefully slow-walking this. Of course, all this comes down to the fact is that this, by all accounts, appears to be a safe, secure, and accurate election. And there is no evidence otherwise. Is it taking a while? Yes. 2 days ago, they came out with, here in Maricopa County, 62,000 ballot results. Last night, it was about 78,000. We will find out, likely in the next hour, what we should expect later tonight to come here. This is a moment here where, just like in 2020, this election appears to be accurate again. And yet you see these Republicans setting the stakes as they right now, each of them, the four statewide candidates, are in the deficit here, essentially setting up what could be them trying to contest the election results if 1, 2, 3, or 4 of them were not able to overcome the deficits that they're currently facing.
Vaughn Hilliard live for us there in Phoenix, Arizona, where he has set up a cot, a residence, and is bringing bolos back. I mean, we love to see it. Vaughn Hilliard, thank you so much. Appreciate it. So clearly, 2022 is not over yet, right? Not even close. But already you've got former President Trump looking at 2024. And today, one of his advisors, Jason Miller, is out saying that this big Tuesday announcement that folks are looking at, what's been billed as a major announcement, will be a run for president again. Watch.
It's going to be a very professional, very buttoned-up announcement. Did a run-through this morning with the logistics team. They have some great folks that are on board.
So, trains off that tracks. Mr. Trump, at the time, has also taken aim at possible opponents, too. Not just Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, but Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin, with a lengthy statement claiming, among many other things, that not just with Youngkin, but on DeSantis, he basically made him, right? Calling him DeSantimonious, politically dead, playing games, et cetera, et cetera. Sahil Kapoor is on Capitol Hill. Sahil, it was this week that Jason Miller tried to publicly get Donald Trump to delay the announcement. It was only on Wednesday, right? 48 hours ago. Oh, how things have changed in 2 days, from Republicans trying to urge the former president to not make this announcement until after the Georgia runoff to, hey, it's full steam ahead. The invites are out, like all systems are go.
That's right, Hallie. It's quite remarkable for someone like Jason Miller, who, as you and I know, has been a longtime advisor to Donald Trump since his first presidential run. He's been very, publicly very protective and defensive of him. For Jason Miller to come out and publicly say that Trump should delay his presidential run, that reflects real angst within the Republican Party on two different fronts. The first is that many Republicans blame Trump for the fact that there was no red wave in the election, that there wasn't the backlash that we usually see to the party in power. That is not a meritless theory because our own NBC News data shows that Trump was as much of a motivator for Republicans to, or for voters to oppose Republicans as President Biden was for voters to oppose Democrats, which is stunning, given that one of them is in power right now and one of them is not. The second reason is there's a runoff election happening in Georgia right now that could be very important in terms of the Senate balance of power. That's happening on December 6th, and many Republicans believe that the best chance the Republican candidate there, Herschel Walker, has is if Trump stays as far out of the spotlight as possible and as far away from the state of Georgia as possible.
Let's talk about Georgia, right? Because everybody's prepping for tons of money being poured into that race. The candidates have already spent hundreds of millions so far. Who's going, right? What is Donald Trump going to do? You mentioned it. What about Governor DeSantis? What does Herschel Walker want? What about on the Democratic side? President Biden saying just in the last 18 hours or so that he is going to wait and see what the campaign wants him to do.
It'll be a very expensive runoff, Hallie. It could be decisive for control of the chamber if the two remaining states that have yet to be called, Arizona and Nevada, split between the parties. There's also a possibility that Democrats sweep those two states and Georgia becomes, either the 50th vote for Republicans or 51st vote for Democrats. But regardless, in terms of, Herschel Walker, I've talked to his team and his advisors on many occasions that I've never once gotten any sense that they want Donald Trump to come campaign for Herschel Walker in the state of Georgia for the simple reason that Trump was the first Republican in decades to lose that state. Republicans lost not one but two Senate seats in the runoffs, while right after Donald Trump came to campaign for them, compelled both of them to promote his fabricated claims that the election was stolen. The voters of Georgia said pretty emphatically no, that they don't support that anymore. So Trump is not necessarily, the type of person that you want if you're trying to win the center, voters in the center, if you're Herschel Walker. As for President Biden, Raphael Warnock, the Democratic senator who's fighting to, win his first six-year term, is also, playing a kind of a delicate balance here in terms of how he approaches President Biden. He's defending many of the accomplishments of the administration that he was part of, but he's also trying to cultivate his own brand, knowing that the president is not particularly popular in that state.
Real quick, Sahel, because with all this question mark over control of power in the Senate, that is affecting the dynamic there as it relates to leadership. You have some high-profile Republicans now coming out in a letter that NBC News has obtained saying, hey, postpone leadership elections next week, meaning voting in Mitch McConnell again as the next leader of the Republican Party in the Senate, whether they have the majority or not. What does this tell you? How firm is Mitch McConnell's grip over his Senate caucus right now?
Well, it's probably a little less firm than it was a week or two ago. It's still quite firm. I mean, this is a man who's had a hammerlock over the Senate Republican caucus for a decade and a half, one of the longest-serving leaders, in Senate history. He is hoping to become the longest-serving leader in Senate history. And the dissent is notable because it does show this creeping disenchantment with Mitch McConnell's leadership within the Republican Party. This is happening more at a ground level, the grassroots level. I was in Georgia a few days ago, talked to a bunch of voters at a Herschel Walker rally about, what they think of Mitch McConnell. The answers were usually meh or negative, but McConnell is, quite good at figuring out where the votes are in his caucus right now. The number of dissenters he has, you can probably count them on your fingers, and you won't even need both hands. What's notable is that they're growing. Someone like Senator Marco Rubio, who's generally had a very good relationship with McConnell and his leadership team, is among those calling for the Senate elections to be postponed. It's less of a surprise that someone like Senator Rick Scott, who has had very public disagreements with McConnell about the direction of the party is in that space. But we'll see where this goes. Right now, there is no viable alternative. Nobody is clearly running that could get more support than Mitch McConnell. And the thing about becoming leader of the caucus, Hallie, is you need the votes to do it.
Straight up. Sahel Kapoor, thank you. Let's talk about what's happening with President Biden, because he is overseas. He's actually on Air Force One now, heading to Cambodia. He'll meet with Southeast Asian leaders there before heading to Indonesia, where he'll meet with the Chinese president, Xi Jinping, for the very first time in his presidency. And there is a lot of eyeballs, a lot of attention on this meeting for good reason. President Biden says he wants to talk about Taiwan, trade, and the war in Ukraine, key issues at the center of this relationship between these two nations that right now is at perhaps its lowest point in decades. This comes after the president was, you see him here, in Egypt for this huge climate meeting, hundreds of countries. He's saying, hey, the U.S. is back as a world leader on climate change. He was talking about the Inflation Reduction Act. That's the bill signed into law that is making some big investments in climate in this country. Let me bring in Carol Lee now. So, Carol, you have made your way to the Cambodian capital. Key meetings there, but bigger, I think a bigger high-profile meeting at the G20 in Bali later on. Lots going on. Talk us through how the White House is looking at this international trip overall.
Well, look, Hallie, they feel better about this trip with Tuesday's election results. White House officials are making the case that the president comes onto the world stage for this particular trip with momentum, that he has political momentum, and that that's going to strengthen his hands in a bunch of discussions that he's expected to have, whether that's here in Cambodia or really particularly when he goes to Indonesia and attends the G20 summit. And their case that they're making is that the president is politically emboldened. And so as he has these discussions with world leaders about, trying to rally support for continued support for Ukraine as that war drags on, for everything from climate change, trying to encourage countries to live up to their commitments to combat climate change, and then that critical meeting with Chinese President Xi. And that is something where President Xi comes into that meeting very much politically emboldened. He secured a third term. He's very strong at home. And so if President Biden were to go into that meeting and some of these other discussions on the heels of a red wave, that would be a very different dynamic. And so the White House feels good about the position that he's in and that he's able to have these discussions and argue that he's here to stay, at least for another 2 years, and that his policies are here to stay, that there's some continuity here.
The continuity piece is interesting because it is entirely possible that President Biden, it seems like that's the direction we're headed, right? He's going to be overseas, surrounded by allies, other world leaders, making commitments about what the United States will do in moving forward as his competition, right, potentially for 2024, Donald Trump, makes some big announcement. How much is the White House thinking about that, Carol? Because I can tell you, I already know they're probably saying, we're going to focus on this. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. The president understands how to manage this. Obviously, right? But there is still an optical thing here where on Tuesday, there's going to be two storylines, one domestic and one international.
And they're going to intersect. You're absolutely right. The White House's position is, look, we're not paying attention to that. The president's focused on his business here on this trip. But it is hanging over this because, and for reasons that the president has outlined himself, world leaders ask the question, according to the president, how long is America back when the president says America's back? And what is Donald Trump in the wings? Is he going to come back? And the president made the case in his news conference on Wednesday that he's going to be making the argument that President Trump is not coming back to the White House, that he's going to do what he can to stop that. Now, the challenge there is he can't really promise that. And a lot of these leaders have heard that before in 2016 when then President Barack Obama was going around the world saying the same exact thing, that Donald Trump would not win the election. And so it's going to hang over the president and his trip here to the extent that the former president makes that announcement, if he does make that announcement. And it certainly is a question that is on the minds of all of these world leaders, because all these issues that the president is going to be discussing here in Cambodia and then in Indonesia, he has a very different view, and the U.S. has a very different stance than former President Trump's administration did, and so it would make a big difference.
Carol Lee live for us there in Phnom Penh. Carol, thank you very much. Good to see you there. This afternoon, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis was looking at just how much damage was done from Hurricane Nicole in that state. Look at this video. Right in the middle there are some of those homes on the beach. The storm, deadly, killing at least 5 people and leaving just real destruction behind. Look at this. This is some new video that we were just getting into us this afternoon. And on top of all this, right, the physical destruction, there is a major financial impact as well. The Volusia County appraiser estimating nearly $500 million in damages. And you know that number is just going to go up as they see more and more of what Nicole left behind. The storm is not done yet. You got a lot of rain, wind, even some isolated tornadoes hitting the Northeast. As you can see the track here on screen, Carrie Sanders is joining us now. Carrie, bring us up to speed on what you're seeing. I assume people are coming back. They're looking at the damage. They're trying to figure out, hey, where do they go from here?
Yeah, absolutely. And, as they come back, they opened up the bridges for residents only to come out to these barrier islands. And as they come back, they're finding on many doors a sign that says you can't get in. So you can see right here, they were putting up those signs, police telling people that it is just unsafe. It's a big difference to say it's condemned. It's just unsafe, cannot go in. But we're talking about buildings, you know, that are condos. At the same time, people have been sort of inching their way in, and very dangerously, I might add, going inside and trying to pack up some items, not in the condos, but more in the houses where they're trying to take things out. Let me take you to the live picture with the drone right now, just to sort of give you an idea, because, of course, one of the questions is the assessment of all of this. So as you see this live drone picture, and we pull back and we show you about some of the homes here in Wilbur by the Sea, one of the big questions, of course, is it possible to rebuild? I mean, that is the big question. And today, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis came here, and he was talking to locals just about that very issue, because there's a lot of red tape, as you can imagine, Hallie.
Yeah, for sure. We saw, and Carrie, you talked about it here on this show, police going door to door, evacuating people in some of these key zones before the storm hit. Rebuilding, you've explained, is going to be intense and long for this community, even as this storm continues to head northward here. Listen, it's not Hurricane Ian, right, that we saw less than 6 weeks ago, but it's not fun for the people who are affected.
Yeah, let me just put it to you like this, and this is the red tape, okay? In the 1980s, to build here, the state law said you can't put in a seawall. You have to rely on a sand dune. That's Mother Nature's natural protection. In fact, you know, man can build those sand dunes, and it prevents the water from coming in. But in this particular case, Ian came in 6 weeks ago. It was a powerful storm on the West Coast, but also here on the East Coast, and it pulled that sand dune out, which meant the homes that you see over my shoulder here, and the ones that we have on the drone shot here,
yeah,
there was no sand dune to protect them. And so can't build a seawall. Sand dune is gone. You're wide open. And that's exactly what happened here. And it's important to note, because that's what the governor is being asked by local residents. You can't have it this way. You can't have, on the one hand, we can't build a seawall. On the other hand, a sand dune is vulnerable and gets washed out. So it's a really vexing question on top of all the red tape to getting permits to rebuild. But it's very clear to me, without, you know, having any sort of engineering degree, but talking to some of the inspectors, those homes, the ones that you see on the drone right now, they're not going to be rebuilt. They're gone. They are absolutely gone, Hallie.
It's hard to look at. Carrie Sanders, glad you are there for us on the ground there in Florida. Appreciate it. So let's talk about a new surprising Twitter flip-flop tonight, with Elon Musk pulling the plug on this new service that would have let people pay for those blue verified check marks. So what's up with this 180? Well, a lot of problems on Twitter. If you have tiptoed onto what some people describe as a hell site in the last couple of days, you may have noticed it, right? You had drug maker Eli Lilly, a fake account posing as drug maker Eli Lilly, tweeting out insulin would be free. The post was up for like 3 hours. It had nearly 1,500 retweets, 10,000 likes. Some of these fake accounts have been suspended, but some of them are still online. They're pretending to be brands or companies with unflattering messages, and that is a huge problem for advertisers. Did I just say advertiser? Advertisers. CNBC's Steve Cook joins me now. Dude, it's been a long week. Forgive me. We're going to keep it regular English here on the show. What's so interesting about this is what seems to be, according to critics, a kind of fundamental misunderstanding that Elon Musk has about how Twitter is going to be making its money, because advertisers, right? That is the profit driver for Twitter. Advertisers don't want to be on a site when, like, fake Chiquita accounts, right, are tweeting about overthrowing governments, and people really don't know the difference between what's real and what's not.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And look, Hallie, when Elon Musk first put out this idea just a week ago saying we're going to start charging people for these verification badges, what was the first thing people said was going to happen? Exactly this, exactly what we're seeing now. People were going to impersonate brands or celebrities, or in the case of LeBron James, for example, was another one who got caught up in this. So this is playing out exactly as everyone but Elon Musk predicted it would. And he actually kind of pitched this as a good thing. Well, if people do try to impersonate, you know, we'll get to keep their $8 and we'll ban them from the service or suspend them forever, or, you know, at least temporarily. Well, they're having trouble even suspending these fake accounts. Like you mentioned, a lot of them are still up, and the ones that did get suspended were up for hours. And in the case of Eli Lilly, that fake tweet knocked millions off of its market cap. So like investors saw that.
That's a real impact. That's like real money,
financial
real impact.
Exactly, yeah. Hallie. Yes.
So what else are you hearing from, like, advertisers, businesses about all this? And is it getting through to Musk?
Yes, I don't know if anything's getting through to Musk, Hallie, but good luck doing that. But what advertisers are doing, just a couple hours ago, Hallie, Omnicron, which is a advertising group which represents brands like Apple, they were just the latest group saying, don't advertise on Twitter. It's not safe right now for your brand. You could be impersonated. Who knows what's going to happen moving forward with trust and safety after so many resignations of leadership at the company who is in charge of all these kind of things. So it's not a safe place for brands. Elon Musk, has accused, tried to make a plea to brands a couple days ago saying it's going to be safe, but it's all completely blown up in his face, Hallie.
CNBC got a hold of an email that Musk sent to the Twitter staff today. Let me say that Musk sent to the people who remain on the Twitter staff today after layoffs, and it, said, hey, thanks for working late in the office and talking. And it seemed like he was showing some flexibility on working remotely after a lot of headlines this week that he was like, come back to work or else. Does that give you any indication that perhaps he may be able to right the ship here? Or that's an impossible question to answer, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, it is a concession on his part, I guess, that he could be a little bit more flexible, work from home. For example, at Tesla, his other company, he has mandated everyone work 40 hours or be fired. So being a little bit more lenient here, maybe he realizes, hey, I can't lose any more people, especially super important people who are going to keep the ship running. Otherwise, the service is just going to stop operating. So maybe, but again, like everything I say right now, Hallie, as we've learned throughout this whole saga it's only been 2 weeks, by the way, over this whole saga is anything that we're saying now could just change in a heartbeat, including in real time. So who knows where we're going to be this time next week, Hallie.
Steve Kovac, thank you very much. It's good to see you, and I'm sure we will talk again next week. Appreciate it.
Definitely.
Coming up, from multi-billions of dollars to bankruptcy. That's what's happening to a major crypto exchange this week. We'll talk about what went wrong for the one-time wunderkind behind it and what it means for the whole industry. Plus, rats, they're just like us. The new study showing we're not the only ones who bop our heads to a jam. That's coming up in the 5 Things. Another roadblock for President Biden's student loan forgiveness plan. Why people can't apply right now anymore, coming up in our 5 Things. But first, from $32 billion to bankruptcy in 1 week. Embattled crypto exchange FTX filing for bankruptcy today. And boy, this is like seismic for the industry there. So here's the deal, right? This FTX, it's this crypto exchange. Some problems started last weekend when the chief executive of Binance, the biggest crypto exchange on the planet, suggested publicly that FTX might be on some shaky financial footing, backing out of a potential merger. Binance sold its holdings in FTX, and that basically set off what is like the crypto equivalent of a bank run. The CEO of FTX, Sam Bankman-Fried, resigned today, tweeting, I'm going to work on giving clarity in where things are in terms of user recovery ASAP. Okay, so what does user recovery look like? That is not clear because the company is said to owe as much as $8 billion to people who invested in this. NBC's Jake Ward joins us now. These are staggering sums of money, Jake, right? Like $32 billion, boom, evaporated, right? Bankruptcy now in such a short period of time. Help us understand how in the world something like this happens.
It is really hard to wrap your mind around it. And I think, first of all, for the sake of time, let's just assume that everybody has some broad sense of what cryptocurrency is, right? We won't spend our time defining that. But one thing we should just remind everybody about it is that as a form of currency, it has no backing by regulators, right? So when you put your money into the bank, you can rest assured that the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation will allow you to get it back if something terrible happens. The FDIC makes that possible. That is not possible in crypto. And so when you said bank run on this, that is exactly right. You remember that scene where George Bailey is trying to talk everybody about, out of making a run on the savings and loan? That's what happened here. We saw investors essentially say, we need our money back. And he revealed that he did not have the dollars in the bank to give back to people when they wanted it. And that was where this all imploded. So the real problem for the industry as a whole is that Sam Bankman-Fried, known as SBF, is really the face of crypto. He was supposed to be the legitimizing force here. He's also the face of a movement called effective altruism, which is all about doing good with one's money. Yep. He was also a big Democratic donor. He's a very, very big deal. And to see this guy go from a personal fortune in excess of $16 billion to him probably not really even having, who knows how little he might have right now, but that has been vaporized overnight, along with everybody else who bought into FTX's idea. This was a incredible crash, and it happened incredibly quickly, Hallie.
For the people who did invest in BTX or put money in that crypto exchange, is it gone? Is that it? Like it doesn't exist now?
There is literally no way to know. It does not exist now. He essentially had to borrow, or at least this seems to have been his motivation. He had to take money from FTX to prop up a trading firm he had called Alameda Ventures. And that seems to have basically wiped out the deposits that they had on hand. Then that money went away inside Alameda Ventures, and he simply does not have it anymore. So essentially, he has said on Twitter and to investors, I'm sorry, I don't have it. That's it. And that seems to be the end of the run here, the end of the line. And of course, this, as you know, Hallie, right, was the company that had the Super Bowl commercials that encouraged you via Larry David to throw your money into this because this was the next great thing, right? This was the legitimizing force, but of course, it is all gone now.
Okay, I hear you on that, right? Like the ads, all of that. But there has never been a moment where there wasn't also the warnings about how risky crypto is. I saw a meme, like whatever, let's talk about memes today, that was like a guy with a sad face saying, I wish several thousand more people had warned me about the risks of investing in crypto and some of these exchanges here. What should people be taking away from this?
Well, I think the big thing that we're going to be looking at really closely in the coming days is what the real human toll is. It's one thing to look at a billionaire made into simply a millionaire and think about it that way. The other thing to think about here is that there are pension funds, there are individual investors, there are people's real money lost in this case. We're going to be looking at the fallout as we go forward here, Hallie.
Jake Ward, thank you. For people who live in big cities but may not have a car, electric scooters and bikes seem to be kind of the hot way to get around. At least they are here in D.C., maybe where you live, too. You know who doesn't love them, though? Firefighters. Because the batteries in these things are creating fires. Like earlier this month in New York City, you had a high-rise apartment complex going up in flames after a lithium-ion battery from an electric scooter or bike caught fire, hurting 43 people. The New York Fire Department saying there were more than 170 fires from these devices, killing 6, with these new warnings now for people to be careful. Emily Aketa is joining us now. She's been digging into this one. You know, in D.C., Emily, I think about Capital Bike Share, these companies like Lime or Bird that have scooters or e-bikes around that a lot of people use. What is the danger? What are the risks? And how do we mitigate them?
So, Hallie, we're not talking about the rentals for e-bikes and e-scooters that you might be able to pick up off of the street for just a few hours or so. Fire officials are raising the alarm, sounding the alarms about the electric scooters and bikes that people are keeping in their home, charging in their home. A lot of these so-called micro-mobility devices involve something called a lithium-ion battery, and that includes a highly flammable electrolyte. So when these things overheat, or maybe it's faulty and it starts to leak, it can cause a reaction in a big way. It sets off a fire that can consume almost anything in its path, moving at an incredible pace. And this is something that bike shop owner Mauricio Orozco knows all too well. He says a single faulty charging electric bike set his entire store in flames. Take a listen here.
Well, to me, it looked like a really powerful firework because it went from a little spark to a massive explosion. And then, I mean, from there, I mean, in 15 seconds, it was completely black smoke, so there was no way to see anything else.
So to give you an idea of the frequency that these fires are happening, here in New York City, fire officials say they've seen about nearly 200 fires involving these kinds of electric bikes and scooters. That is more than the past 3 years combined. So it's really taking off as these products are becoming more popular among people in various cities, Hallie.
So real quick, Emily, give us the news you can use, as they used to say in my local news days. Like, what is the consumer takeaway here? How do you keep safe? What should you know? I mean, can I be honest? I am asking as an e-bike owner and commuter every day to this office.
Yeah, well, I think first and foremost, this is not where you want to save a buck or two. You want to buy certified products. The other thing you want to do, you want to make sure you're not mixing and matching products. So you want to make sure you're using the same cord, the same battery together by the same manufacturer. Avoid charging things unattended or overnight. Keep at room temperature. And this is obvious, but if you notice damage, stop using it, Hallie. We'll have more tips for you tonight on NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Cannot wait to watch you there. Emily Aketa, thank you. As Emily just mentioned, she will be on with Lester with even more. Tune in. You'll see it on your local NBC News station and then, of course, right here on NBC News Now later on in the night. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, some new numbers show nearly 1 in 9 kids, middle or high school students, say that right now they're using tobacco, some form of it, like e-cigs. They're the most popular one, according to this New study just out from the CDC. The CDC says tobacco is the leading cause of preventable death, disability, and disease among adults in the U.S. Number 2, the Biden administration has stopped taking applications for its student loan forgiveness program. It would cancel up to $20,000 in student debt for millions of Americans. It comes after a federal judge in Texas struck down the president's plan. So far, more than 26 million people have submitted applications. The Biden administration says the Justice Department is appealing the decision. The Education Secretary says they're going to push forward, etc. We'll see where that goes. Number 3, comedian Leo Gallagher's family says he died this morning. He was 76 years old. He was known as Gallagher. He hosted 14 Showtime specials, something like 3,500 live shows. He was most famous for the Sledge-O-Matic, a sketch where he would smash a bunch of foods, like, do you see it here, smash a watermelon, etc. Netflix says Chris Rock will be the first comedian to have a live streaming special on Netflix. We don't know a lot of details other than it's supposed to happen early next year. It's kind of a big test for Netflix. The company's never done a live global streaming event like this. Number 5, apparently, as you can see, rats love bops too. A study from the University of Tokyo found we're not the only ones who can move our heads in time to music. Researchers played Mozart, Lady Gaga, Queen for rats and found they can do it like we can. They tested the animals and people and found they jerked their heads to the beat in a similar rhythm. That rat looks like me when I dance. I'll be honest. That's how I look. I have a lot of rhythm, but apparently it's rat rhythm. Still to come. Celebrations in one Ukrainian city because Russia's military has been completely pushed out. We've got a report from Kyiv on why it's such a big blow for President Putin. Stay with us as we take you overseas in just a minute. A lot of celebrations over in the Ukrainian city of Kherson today after a big announcement from Russia that its military has totally retreated from the city. Now, look at this. These are the pictures we're seeing. People cheering, people chanting, people raising the Ukrainian flag outside one of the government buildings there, with the celebrations keeping up into the night. Let's be clear about what this is. A big win for Ukraine, a big loss for Russia and for President Putin. Remember, it was only last month that he'd said Kherson was now part of Russia after staging these sham referendums to try to annex the area. The region is also a key gateway to Crimea, which has been under Russian control since 2014. Molly Hunter is on the ground for us in Ukraine.
Hallie, this is a huge blow for President Putin, really the biggest blow militarily since his troops were pushed back around the eastern city of Kharkiv. And really before that, since his troops were pushed back around the capital of Kyiv, of course, where I am. And now I spent a lot of time in Kharkiv, Hallie. When those Russian troops left those villages, what we found was people who were incredibly traumatized, were people who had had a very tough 6 months under occupation. What we are going to see in Kherson, though, Hallie, is people who've been living under Russian occupation for 9 months. So just to give a little bit of context, yesterday the Russian military announced they were going to retreat, that they were going to withdraw all of the troops that have been inside Kherson to the east bank of the Dnipro River. Now, Hallie, the Dnipro River cuts that strategic Kherson region in half. And Kherson, as we have been talking about, is so strategic for the Russians because it connects occupied Crimea to occupied southeastern Ukraine and really to Russia mainland. So it provides a land bridge. As of now, what we understand from the Ukrainian military is that the Russian troops, most of them, unclear if every single last one, have retreated to the east bank of the Dnipro River. That river itself is actually no man's land. And on the western side is ostensibly free Ukraine. But right now there are reports that there is shelling, that it is still very, very messy on that west bank. Tonight, President Zelensky spoke. He said today is a historic day. We are returning Kherson. As of now, our defenders are approaching the city, but special units are already inside the city. And Hallie, tonight we're seeing videos posted on social media, posted by Ukrainian military members of people celebrating, civilians waving the Ukrainian flag, singing the national anthem, dancing around a bonfire, really for the first time in 9 months, being able to express their Ukrainian identity. What the Ukrainian military is also telling us is as their advance crept towards that city, crept towards the actual Kherson city, they were liberating villages. And we have now seen videos of civilians kissing soldiers. I'm so grateful that they have come through, singing the Ukrainian national anthem. And Hallie, as we talked about Kharkiv, as we talked about the suburbs around Kyiv, around here, these people in Bucha and Borodyanka and Ivankiv were under occupation for 5 weeks. Out of Kharkiv, some of those towns and villages were under occupation for 6 months. Around Kherson and in that city, we're talking about people who were under Russian occupation for 9 months. But tonight, according to the Ukrainian government, according to President Zelensky, Kherson is once again in Ukrainian hands. Hallie?
Molly Hunter with that story for us there. In the original tonight, we're looking into how abortion access and the battle over it is playing out on college campuses across the country, and the way that one college in particular is looking to short up for its students. We'll be right back. NBC News covers hundreds of stories every day, and because you couldn't possibly read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. From our Southeast Bureau, thousands of fans showing up today to Atlanta's State Farm Arena to pay their respects to Migos rapper Takeoff in a special celebration of life service. You'll remember Takeoff was shot and killed outside a bowling alley in Houston earlier this month. He was 28 years old. His family is asking people to donate to the Rocket Foundation, which supports programs that use community-based solutions to prevent gun violence. No arrests have been made in the death of Takeoff. From our West Coast Bureau, police in Southern California want help from the public. They're trying to find 3 Olympic medals that they say were stolen during a robbery last month. The gold, silver, and bronze medals are from the last 3 summer games and belong to a women's volleyball Olympian. We don't know exactly who. The Orange County Sheriff's Department isn't saying, but does say they were inside a safe. The whole safe was actually taken out of the house. So there you go. From our Northeast Bureau, a little throwback. The top Light Bright and Masters of the Universe action figures, the newest inductees of the National Toy Hall of Fame in New York State. They're joining 77 other toys in that list of exclusive toys. This year's winners beat out other finalists like Bingo, Nerf, and the Pinata. Nerf? Okay, well, that's my personal Hall of Fame. So tonight's original now with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been keeping an eye on. Today, it is abortion access on college campuses after the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade. And you have seen states take matters into their own hands this week alone. 5 states had abortion referendums on their ballots: California, Kentucky, Michigan, Montana, Vermont. And in all 5, voters made the choice not to restrict abortion access any further. Now, higher education institutions, in other words, colleges and universities, just plain English, are figuring out how to try to serve students, how to try to serve their communities in a post-Roe world. NBC News' medical fellow, Dr. Akshay Sayal, has the story.
Niharika Rao is a Barnard College student and the co-founder of the Reproductive Justice Collective.
It's not just the red states, is what I think we're trying to say.
It's a student-led organization that advocated for the New York City-based women's college to provide abortion pills for students.
The court overturning Roe wasn't a surprise. It was something they had indicated that they were about to do since Planned Parenthood v. Casey.
Months after the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, Barnard released a memo saying it will make sure that campus providers are prepared and trained in the provision of medication abortion by fall 2023.
What did it feel like when you saw that memo come out?
It felt really good to know that access was going to be a reality.
Dobbs has changed the entire abortion landscape in America. More and more people are coming to New York as it is a destination state.
Other higher education institutions across the country are moving in a different direction.
Abolish abortion!
The University of Idaho's General Counsel sent a memo warning employees that promoting abortions is against the state's law, according to the Idaho Capital Sun. A university spokesperson said in an email to the Capital Sun, in part, quote, "Employees engaging in their course of work in a manner that favors abortion could be deemed as promoting abortion. We reached out to the University of Idaho. It declined to comment."
What do we do?
Women in their 20s account for more than half of abortions, according to 2019 data from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. But the Reproductive Justice Collective is thinking beyond the gates of Barnard.
We're doing a statewide legislative effort to pass a bill for abortion pills on campus across New York. And we're working with folks from SUNY and CUNY campuses.
And while some student groups, like theirs, are working to provide abortion services for students on campus, other college student groups are doing the opposite.
We are the pro-life generation!
Students for Life for America is an anti-abortion advocacy organization serving more than 1,000 campus groups with representation in all 50 states. It is against colleges providing abortion pills.
I'm in college, having the thought of having those available to even my friends and having to go through that in a college dorm setting is just absolutely heartbreaking.
2 states made it a law. Massachusetts is requiring public colleges and universities to submit plans for providing medication abortions by next November. And in California, public colleges and universities are required to offer the pills by this January. Barnard sees ripple effects of the Roe v. Wade decision, saying in its memo it will likely decrease college accessibility, result in lower graduation rates, and derail employment trajectories.
I think it's important to keep in mind that even if the university or even if the highest court in our land does something, there's still possibilities, and people who want to get abortions can get abortions and will always have options.
Dr. Akshay Sayal, NBC News.
When we come back here on the show, NBC News Daily anchor Aaron Gilchrist has been telling veterans stories from overseas and all over the U.S. And tonight, he's showing us some of the volunteers working to make sure these heroes are not forgotten. That's our backstory tonight. Time now to get the backstory, our behind-the-scenes look at how a story comes together and how it fits into our bigger picture. And for Veterans Day, we're taking a closer look at the thousands of veterans who have died, but whose cremated remains have gone unclaimed for years. The most recent estimate from the VA was that nearly 53,000 remains of veterans were still unclaimed as of 2018. So, at the South Florida National Cemetery, volunteers are stepping in to make sure they get a proper burial. Our Aaron Gilchrist went there to hear more about why these folks want to make sure veterans are never forgotten. And for Aaron, this is just one of a number of stories he's covered on veterans for NBC, reporting from, look at all these places on your screen, everywhere you see here in the U.S. and overseas that you're looking at. He joins us now. Aaron, we're so glad to have you with us. Thank you for staying late after your shift to talk to us about this. The number, I think people hear that and go, my God, how is it that 53,000 veterans have essentially been either forgotten or left behind? How did you first hear about and find out about this story? Was it somebody from the VA that reached out? Like, help us understand that behind the curtain a little bit.
You know, it's interesting. Like, we were shocked, too, when we started seeing the numbers around this all over the country, really. A great producer, Mary Flum, and I started asking more questions and reading more about this issue after it sort of came across her radar. And I think what we found in talking to the Missing in America Project is that there are so many instances where veterans die, and either some of them have been homeless veterans who didn't have anyone to claim them. In other cases, you have veterans who've outlived their family members, and so there was no one left to claim them. And in some cases, you've had vets who've been disowned by their families, and so they die, they go to a coroner's office, end up at a funeral home, they're cremated, and then in some cases there were funeral homes who said the red tape at the VA was so dense that the effort to try to figure out how to get their proper burial rites done was just too much, and so they end up sitting on a shelf somewhere. These cremated remains do. For years in some cases, the Missing in America Project says that they've found vets who died after the Civil War and were never buried, and now they're making a way to make sure they get the funeral rites, the military burials that they have earned.
It's an important story and one of so many you've done on vets. I think people might or might not know that your grandfather was in the Army. I wonder, like, how do you think about, given the family connection here, what are your earliest memories of the military? How has that informed your reporting now on these types of stories?
Yeah, you know, I know as a kid, my granddad would tell me stories about his time in the service, and my best friend's now an Army major, and, you know, so it's always sort of been a part of my world, I guess, from a personal perspective. And then professionally, living in D.C. for so many years and working there for so many years, you meet people, you meet vets, you meet family members of active duty service members, and you hear these incredible stories about these people who are patriotic and thoughtful, and when they leave the service, they are still, in so many cases, serving their country, working for the communities in which they live. And so I just learned that there are so many amazing stories to tell, so many things that people don't know about of active duty service members and so many veterans. You saw some of the footage there. We went to France last year with a group of tomb guards for the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. These were retired folks who just wanted to pay their respects to soldiers who were buried overseas. And just they're amazing people to get to know.
That's incredible. Aaron Gilchrist, thank you so much for bringing these stories to us, for giving us a glimpse at how it comes together behind the scenes. That's the ethos of this segment, and we so appreciate it. I should note, by the way, if you want to see more of Aaron's reporting, and I know you do, you can see Aaron and Kate Snow on NBC News Daily every day from 2 to 4 Eastern, right here on NBC News Now. And then tonight, Tom Yamas and Lucy Bustamante from NBC Philadelphia will look at the lives of veterans and their families, including how they are still serving even here at home. Watch American Vets Beyond the Battlefield tonight at 10:30 Eastern on NBC News Now. A happy Veterans Day to all who serve, including my own father-in-law. We're so appreciative. That's a wrap for this hour. We're going to have more for you here on Monday. It is the weekend. Enjoy it. We'll see you same time, same place. Coverage picks up right now.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.